posture movement. I'm trying to correct everybody's posture, get their core stable, kind of give you an idea of how to move a little bit better. And part of this is associated to, is your diaphragm working, is your core working, are you de-stressing your spine? So let's just go through the basics. One is, when we take a step, our foot should go straight and we should grab with our toes. So take a step, foot goes straight, grab with our toes. So now when my foot goes straight, my back does not bend if my pelvis moves, right? So if my foot goes straight, because our pelvis and the way our hips are set up, our hips like to go this way. So what we do, like every mammal does, if you ever watch a cat or a dog, they have this counter rotation that happens. So you see a cat when it's getting ready to pounce, or a runner is starting to run, you see this kind of counter rotation that happens, right? So that's normal. So that's how we get our foot straight, because our hips make our feet want to go this way. So if we're lazy and walk like a lazy person, or like somebody who just squatted 1,000 pounds and can barely walk, because you might be walking like this, right? Well, this doesn't work very well. Can't take a very big step. If I did take a step with my feet out, then I wouldn't be able to step very far, because my pelvis, my hip doesn't like to go this way, right? My hip is limited in here, it's unlimited here, right? If I took a step here, I go this far, and if I wanted to go further, I have to bend my lower back and my knee on the other side. Whereas if I move my pelvis, back stays straight, everything is moving and not stressed. So this is definitely more efficient. So let's, if I didn't move my pelvis and I walked, take these off for a second. I didn't move my pelvis and I took a step, then my feet are going to be pointed out. So if I take a step and I don't move my pelvis, obviously my back bends, but what happens to my foot? Well, my foot, I have to walk off the inside of this toe. So I tend to having a hallux valgus, where my big toe is pointed towards my other toes, and I tear the muscle, the adductor hallucis, that holds the toe straight. So I lose my ability to spread my toes apart, especially my big toe from the other toes, right? What else happens here is, if I'm walking off the inside of my foot, is I get plantar fasciitis. So the plantar fascia here, it's not supposed to be stressed like that, is now getting stressed, and I tear my plantar fascia. Okay? Also, if I walk off the inside of my foot, I end up tearing my posterior tibialis tendon, which kind of wraps right behind the plantar fascia. And the other thing that happens is, because I tear my adductor hallucis that keeps the big toe out, then that muscle atrophies. So it looks like I have a higher arch. You're like, look how high my arch is. I'm like, you don't have a high arch most of the time when people say that. You just don't have any muscle here anymore, because the muscle has nothing to attach to. So you have this big caved in part of the inside of your foot, because you have near complete atrophy of that part of your adductor hallucis. So correcting all of those things. Well, there's one more thing. I'm going to tear my Achilles tendon. If I walk and run like this, I'm going to tear my Achilles tendon, because the tendon is made to go straight. But if I'm walking off the inside of my foot, the tendon is bent, it's going to tear on this side, and gradually it's going to tear all the way. So, don't want to have plantar fasciitis, don't want to have ugly feet, don't want to have Achilles tear, all those things happen. But along with that, your back is hurt, now your knee is not working, and your hip is not working. So let's go to the knee then. So let's say that I walk with my foot out. What's going to happen is, my patellar tendon is going to slide a little bit to the outside. If I walked straight, it's going to stay pretty centered, right? So I want to see an even balance, and my patellar tendon be aligned up straight. So what else happens? If I don't move my pelvis, I go to take a step, then these muscles are all being pulled a lot tighter than if I move my pelvis. So my pelvis is here, this is relaxed, pelvis stays back, these are tight. So IT band friction syndrome, where these muscles are being, and the tendons are being pulled against the nerves on the outside of the knee above the femoral condyle, lateral condyle. So if I do move my pelvis, so far So far, if I didn't move my pelvis, I've established that I get lateral tracking of the patellar tendon, I get hallux valgus, I get plantar fasciitis, I get Achilles tendon tear, I get, because the patella is tracking off, now I got patellar tendonitis. I get a lower back problem, usually like a lower lumbar facets, because every time I take a step, rather than my back staying straight, this is like a nice straight spine, it's bending right here, so now I got a facet joint tear here. So, and I also have potential for Achilles tendon problem, posterior tibialis tendon problem. So, I can correct all those things. If my foot goes straight, my foot works like it looks like it's made to. Look, if you look at my foot, it just seems like this part of my foot should touch the floor, right? It doesn't seem like I'm going to touch the floor with this part of my foot. So I take my foot goes straight, and I use my toes. I always say, foot straight, little toe to big toe. So little toe is always going to go down first because it's closer, right? I don't want to really hit my foot hard on my heel. I want to hit and let my foot kind of grab the ground like a hand. So I just, roll onto my whole foot. And what's going to happen is your foot's going to go down, little toe to big toe. The big toe goes down. Now before before my weight gets straight over my ankle joint, my ankle is going to roll a little bit in. That's normal, right? And as soon as I even up to my ankle joint, my foot goes back to straight, and I use my toes to push off. So how am I going to tear all of this stuff if I'm moving straight? I'm not going to, right? Not only that, I took a lot of stress off. So if you look at my shoulders and I just walk, even with the right gait, if I don't use my toes, then I'm kind of slamming on my knee and my hip joints, right? So if I just take a couple steps, heel to ball, heel to ball, heel to ball, heel to ball, you can see how my body's just taking this. It's kind of a lazy way to walk. I'm just kind of pounding on my joints. Whereas if I just finish the same step with my whole foot, then all of a sudden, the top of my shoulders, everything is smooth. There's not this pounding. And now I'm on my muscles, and I'm not on my joints. And if I wanted to move, I have this agility in my foot. Our feet are made to control our agility. You shouldn't be coming from that primarily from your knees or your hips. It should be from your feet. So when I'm using my toes, I have the ability to change directions and be more of an athlete. And I can de-stress my joints. So when you start doing this, your foot's probably not that strong. You want to have a supported shoe more than like a barefoot shoe. It takes a long time to get your foot strong enough to run more than 3 miles with barefoot, or even more, or even a mile. So let's just think. We're going to put our foot straight. We're going to move our pelvis, which is going to happen naturally if you have our foot straight, and we're going to grab with our toes. So if we just do that, that's one thing we can think about. Foot straight, grab with our toes. The upper body should be kind of loose. It's going to naturally move. You're not going to be able to think about how to move it, to just think, how does my body want to move? If you're really relaxed and you turn, your arms will just move around, right? So you ever watch a really good athlete and they're just walking around, they're like, hey, what's going on? Because everything is relaxed, right? You just want to be normal, natural motion. Let your body move. Don't hold it too tight up top. So the next thing is, like I said, we can only think of one thing at a time. So I want to think of now, when I walk, I want my pelvis to move. So how do I guarantee I'm moving evenly? And the answer is your glute, right? So your glute, the glute max kind of goes this direction. It's what a lot of what these gluteal muscles do is they push the pelvis on the opposite side forward, right? And this is going to push the pelvis on the opposite side forward. So if you walk and you focus on, is my glute moving, contracting evenly on both sides, then you know what? You're going to be moving pretty evenly. So is my glute contracting evenly on both sides? So it makes you a more efficient walker, runner, all those things. So to take that a step further, I wanted to say, how do we get this whole machine working a little bit better? And that would be to get our knees to be aligned and straight, because you've probably been walking off the outside of your knees like this for a lot of your life. If you haven't paid attention to how you walk, or you can walk just like a giant, I call it like the giant baby walk. You see these big guys that don't move very well and they walk like a giant baby, like, you know, their lats out and they're way too much, but you know, it's not very efficient. You want to be still straight. But if that's happened for a while, you kind of lost the ability to use the muscles that inside your knee. So most people, when they use their leg to straighten their knee, most of the force is going through over the patella, and that's causing the patella to grind, especially if it's tracking off center. It's going to grind against the femur, and you get arthritis. But what we're made to do is use all of these muscles, and that's the muscles on the inside and the outside of the knee. The inside would be our vastus medialis, our sartorius, our gracilis, our semitendinosus. And those muscles not only internally rotate, some of them flex the knee, but they also extend the knee. So if I use all those muscles, I'm going to protect my knee. On the outside, we have our vastus lateralis, also extends the knee. We have our IT band, also extends the knee. We have our biceps femoris, also has some extension of the knee. So, and that's our lateral stability too. So these are medial tibial rotators, external tibial rotators. We want those muscles to work. So how do we get that to work? Well, there's a basic thing we teach our athletes, you know, they're our lifting athletes, is to activate muscles. So when you do a squat, you want to have your foot relatively straight, but you want to have pressure that's moving it out, right? And as you do a squat, you want to have your knees move the way that your hips would have them move, which is they're going to go out, right? So your knee needs to go out as you go down and come back when you go up, right? So if you use all the muscles, all these muscles, then your knee will go out when you go down and come back when you go up. And if your knee goes out when you go down and stays out, then you're injuring or grinding your patellofemoral joint and your hip joint. If you come back up, your knee comes back in, then you're using your muscles and you're off of both of those joints, right? So if I was going to do a squat, I want to have, as on my way down, I want to have my feet moving this way. I mean, I don't have pressure to move my feet without my feet actually moving. So I'm activating these muscles. And as I come back up, I want to have my feet move this way to activate these muscles. So watch as I go down to do a squat. I'm just going to do a half squat. If I go down, my knees go out. As I go up, they come back in the same pattern. So kneecaps down, kneecaps back up, same pattern. And you can go even all the way down, all the way up, all the way. And you just see that same pattern going down is present coming up. Now, if I go all the way down, I leave my knees out, I need to lean forward a little bit. Now my hips and my knees are stressed, right? Whereas if I go down, my knees come back up, all the stress is off of those joints, and I can keep squatting and I stay stronger and I can keep doing things for a longer time in my life. So that little squat doesn't need to be all the way down, but it is a cue to teach your body to feel that, those muscles. So if you are doing it properly, the kneecaps will go down and up the same way. You don't ever want your kneecaps to come in more, just to neutral, right? But also you should feel muscle contraction below your knee, especially on the way back up. So you should feel these muscles work on the way back up. And then you start to get this ability to move where your knee is going to be way below and not be stressing. Because if you did that same motion and you had all the force going through your patellar tendon, you're going to definitely get patellar tendonitis and arthritis, right? But if you have all of these muscles working, then you can get way over your knee and come back up and not even stress your knee at all, because you have more activation and you're de-stressing potentially stressful area. So we want to have you move fluidly. We want you to learn how to use more muscles. And the reason I use the toes is just using the toes, you activate all these muscles. So when you start using your toes, what you'll notice is, as an athlete, the first 2 or 3 steps will be double to triple as fast as if you didn't use your toes. So it takes 2 or 3 steps to get those muscles to start to fire. So you'll be a lot faster right off the blocks if you're using your toes, just because you have more muscle activation. So why not be faster? Why not be a better athlete? And you have a lot more longevity. So The issue is, it does take work, and it takes a while before your foot strength is going to catch up to the strength that you develop in the rest of your legs, right? So you're not going to go out there and be able to do the same things using your toes that you were doing without using your toes. But then it's going to take weeks to get that strength back up. So we got to start first thing in the morning, get out of bed. You think, little toe to big toe. I'm grabbing with my foot, little toe to big toe, little toe to big toe. And just get used to that every step. You get out of your car, little toe to big toe. Immediately you're going to notice you're going to have a lot less stress in your hips and your knees. The other thing I want you to think about is when you're going up and down stairs. So going up and down stairs, if you're going upstairs, I want you to think little toe to big toe. And I want you to think also, my heel never goes below my toes. Be really close. If I'm little toe to big toe, I'm going to de-stress my knees and my hips going up and down stairs. So I'm not going to have that patellar tendon problem. I'm not going to have that pain. I'm taking the stress off of my joints, putting it into my muscles. If I'm going downstairs, maybe my whole foot doesn't fit on the stair, but I still think it goes through that same pattern. And I still don't let my heel go below where my toes would be. So my heel is a little bit up, even going downstairs. Don't ever let your heel sit. Don't ever sit on your heel, then you're gonna damage your joints. So when you're walking, it's okay to have your heel touch, but you want your foot to come down supplely. You don't want to have pound on your heel. That's going to go right in your joints, right? So your foot, use your foot as it's meant to be used with fluidity, with strength. Use grip the ground with your foot. Get that agility going. Okay, so obviously there's agility moves, but when you incorporate the strength of your foot and you move properly, it's going to be a lot faster. One of the other things that I can see when somebody has bad mechanics, they don't move their pelvis when they walk, one thing is their big toe is turned out to the other toes. The other thing I notice is the other toes will be closer together, so you have a lack of separation. A healthier foot, a more athletic foot is going to have their toes spread out more. And also, if you don't ever use your toes, you tend to get this little hammer toe where the toe is kind of bent up. You get that hammer toe because you have developed your foot and you have developed your foot without using your toe flexion. So you need to have flexion to close the muscles and to close your toes as strong as the muscles that open your toes. If you don't, the muscles on the top of your foot have to lift your toes up, get a lot stronger than the muscles on the bottom of your foot that close your toes down. As a result, you get this tightening of the extensor tendons that kind of buckles your toe like in a hammer form, right? We might not be able to get rid of that hammer form very easily, and I'm not super concerned about it, but I do want to get your toes further apart, and I also do want to get you to use your toes so we can start at least preventing that from getting worse and starting to move in a better direction. So we want to have, so when I look at your toes and I see you have hammer toes, I look at your toes, you see you have hallux valgus. Let's look at your toes and I see they're smashed all together. Then I know we got to work on your the way you walk, the way you move, the way you squat, the way you play sports. So we got that kind of a picture so far as your foot go. I'm going to just, for the rest of this video, I'm going to end it after I get through a little bit of the core here. I talked a little bit about the core in some of the videos where we have, sometimes your diaphragm doesn't work because your phrenic nerve is irritated in the neck, mostly because of an infection or arthritis or whatever. And then if your diaphragm is not working, it's hard to stabilize your core. What I mean by stabilizing your core is you can move without much motion happening between your shoulders and your pelvis. So in a sense, you can move kind of more like an athlete, right? So everything happens more, actually, a lot happens in the foot rather than everything happening up here. Because every time we unlock our core, we become slower and more vulnerable to injury. So I always say, professional athlete, you're gonna throw a ball, use their core, right? Amateur athlete, unlock the core. So getting used to locking this core, this is where our power is at. We can transition the power of our legs through our upper body. So if we're gonna swing a baseball bat without locking our core, here. If we lock our core, a little bit faster and a lot more power because we're transitioning the power of our legs through our upper body. So locking that core has more to do with the transverse abdominis and the diaphragm than it does have to do with the other muscles that are also very important, but they're usually more easily activated in an athlete. So the transverse abdominis is just that core locking exercise, provided your diaphragm is working. That's just kind of get used to moving without moving your body above, between your pelvis and your shoulders. So I usually say here first, you can kind of see it, your butt moves the opposite direction of your shoulders. And then the other thing is, now you're, come out here, get a little bit better feel for it. What tends to happen is people tend to want to do this, right? So they don't want to see that kind of moving my upper body. I'm unlocking my core. I want to see you learn how to lock it. It's not bad to unlock it, but you want to know how to lock it. And then eventually you can do the rib trainer. You see a video on there where you're just doing the rib trainer. So you hold a bar and you have resistance. And yeah, it'll strengthen your transverse abdominis. So we want to get used to this motion. So with all that combined with the squats, I start to get used to where I could just, have this more athletic ability to move, pick things up, keep my back and spine straight the whole time, right? So you strengthen your hips, strengthen your legs, and you protect your back, your spine, and knees, and you don't have injuries. So getting used to locking your core, using your feet normally. It's a big change for an athlete and being a better athlete, but more important, being a person who ages well and has longer capacity to be active and functional in life. And I'm going to go over a little bit about why sometimes people will lose their ability to move their pelvis because nobody told them not to. So let's say that I hurt my knee or my ankle on this side. I'm going to limp. Limping is, I don't move that side of my pelvis. So limping, everybody knows what that is. I'm limping. You kind of know you're limping. And then you decide, oh, he feels pretty good. I don't have to limp anymore. I'm totally good. Look at everybody. They're like, you're limping. No, I'm not. I'm not limping at all. because nobody ever told you that, hey, your pelvis has got to move. You never thought about it, right? But if you're like, oh, move your pelvis on that side. Make sure that foot is straight. Like, oh, yeah, that feels a little bit better. And move your toes and everything is better. But here my spine stays straight. I can be nice and even. I can use both sides of my glutes versus the guy who forgot that he was still limping. And it's funny, you see that all the time, right? So there's a little bit more to go on. I really want to have us have our posture up as much as we can. I think when we do this exercise, one of the things I want to think about is having your posture up. So I always think, if you look at between the back, my mid back, and my sternum here, the difference would just be bad posture, good posture. And notice nothing really moves in my neck or my shoulders. Just my upper back gets closer to my sternum and compresses my heart and my lungs, or it's further from my sternum and takes the pressure off my heart and lungs. And also distributes the pressure of holding my head much lower down, so between this area to all the way down to my mid back, from the skull to my mid back. So I can just be in this posture and I can be in a better place for my spine. My heart works better, my lungs work better. And also if I'm gonna lift, I wanna be here. I wanna be here. I can see this protecting you, but you wanna be living your life here. You don't wanna be doing any work here. You wanna be doing your work here. So most people, what they'll do is they'll go to lift something up and like, okay, I just rounded everything out, so now you made my spine really vulnerable, which is what you do when you don't have enough strength and flexibility to do what a 10-year-old kid trying to throw a 70-pound bale does is grab it and then use their leg, right? So keep your body straight. Use this strong stuff you have here. Back stays straight, neck stays up. So we want to think of, when we walk, keep this space open. There's a reason why for thousands of years, every soldier in every army had to stand up straight, because they had to run for 20 miles, fight to the death, run 20 miles back in full armor sometimes with stuff, right? So you're not going to run 20 miles with full armor and stuff and fight if you're running like this, because your heart's compressed, your lungs compressed, nothing works. This will actually work, right? You can live like this. You might need to protect your head for a second, but not for long, right?